The Washington Commanders finally found their road identity, dominating the Los Angeles Chargers with a physical offensive attack and a stifling second half defense to secure a statement win. How it went down, what it all means, coming up right now on Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Commanders. I'm David Harrison, your guy on the ground covering the Washington Commanders and doing it for WUSA9.com. Also here with you 5 days a week, and you can find me writing about the Commanders for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com. Follow me on X at DHarrison82, and I want to thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen or your first view of the day. And a special thank you goes out to all of the everydayers, those of you who come through for every single episode. Thank you again for coming through for today's episode. Coming up on the show, Kliff Kingsbury's offense is finally getting some national respect. The Commanders' game plan was nearly flawless in the second half, thanks to 2 game-changing turnovers. And this team has showed its clutch potential, but there are still some concerning habits that are still lingering after week 5. All of that coming up on this episode of Locked On Commanders, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Kliff Kingsbury and the Washington Commanders offense, the biggest story from this week 5 win over the Los Angeles Chargers isn't just that Jayden Daniels returned, although that was obviously a huge storyline. His return to Southern California to play in front of his home crowd, lots of family, lots of friends on hand for that. But also it was how Kliff Kingsbury's creative and physical offense is now impressing national analysts and redefining what this team can be. We've talked about it before on the episode. Everydayers, you're going to remember hearing me say this, that my belief, and I've gotten this from talking to several people in the league over the years, the first 4 games, the first quarter of the season, a lot of it is about finding out who you are as a team, establishing your standard, establishing your culture, your identity, all that. And I know we talk about that throughout the offseason, training camp, and all that stuff. But once the games are real, once the bullets actually start flying, they're actually live, that's when you really find out who you are. And now from this point moving forward, it's Kliff Kingsbury, it's Joe Witt Jr.'s, and it's Dan Quinn's job to make sure this team is operating based off of who they are, not who they want to be, although take strides to who you want to be if there is a clear path to that, of course, as always. But this offense, we talked about this heading into the game, and I told you guys very honestly, I didn't know how much confidence I had that Kliff Kingsbury had come to grips with the fact that his team is a run-first offense, at least as of right now. When Terry McLaurin gets back, when Noah Brown gets back, things like that, perhaps that can change at least a little bit. But no matter what, this team is going to be operating at its best when the run game is a part of the strategy. I don't think that needs to ever go away. So hopefully this game is a sign that Kliff Kingsbury not only understands it, but is starting to embrace it with his quote-unquote physical finesse of an attack. I really love the way that was put. That came from Dan Orlovsky of ESPN's NFL Live. As I was getting ready to do this episode, I was researching this episode. It stood out so heavily in real time watching this game happen in Los Angeles. I'm sure you noticed it on television, how much they pivoted. They started off very Jayden Daniels centric. And look, I love Jayden, incredibly talented quarterback. I think one of the best quarterbacks in the league already just in his second year. But again, this team has shown what its identity is this season. And at least right now, it's a run-first offense. First pass play of the game is a pass. Second play of the game is a quarterback run. Third play of the game is also a pass. And even Chick Hernandez of WSA 9 did his exclusive sit-down with Dan Quinn on Monday after the game. I'm always there for it. I write the article that accompanies the interview. And he even asked Dan Quinn in the interview, said, look, sitting up in the press box, we see that quarterback run play on the second play of the game. We all kind of go, we all kind of cringe a little bit. How did you react to that once it happened? And he said, yeah, it was a little bit of the same, those types of things. So it's something that a lot of us didn't necessarily want to see, but what ended up happening after that, eventually you kind of see Kliff Kingsbury and this offense turn into that quote unquote physical finesse, as Orlovsky coined it. And it kind of departed a little bit from the air raid reputation to throw the ball downfield, all that kind of stuff. And again, not going to rehash it too much. I've gotten into it over and over again on this program. Air raid is not actually just, in its spirit, I should say, is not just about throwing the ball deep. It's about utilizing the entirety of the field. And Dan Quinn talked about that as well, not just using the up and down part of the field, but using the left and right. That is the true air raid. So it's actually still kind of air raid. It's just not the stereotypical air raid, which is throwing the ball deep downfield on every single rep. So Dan Orlovsky also pointed out the use and the way that Kliff Kingsbury employed the pistol formation. Now, the pistol formation has been part of this offense since last season, but this game specifically, you really saw it kind of make its 2025 debut, not in the sense that it's the first time we've seen it in 2025, but more so how effective it was and how much it was featured. Dan highlighted the use of the sixth offensive lineman, which is something that we saw really start last week with the absence of John Bates. Even though John Bates was back, they kept that and they continue moving forward with that. Said that it's, quote, the best way to utilize the pistol in the modern era of the NFL, end quote. And I think, obviously, I agree wholeheartedly, or else I wouldn't include it in my show, right? Now, Dan also explained that it adds a, quote, unquote, physical presence to the, quote, unquote, finesse, hence the physical finesse of the no huddle and the motion concepts, calling it a, quote, new layer for this offense this year, end quote. And one reason I really wanted to involve Dan Orlovsky's comments in this because last year, he was really the first person on the national stage to really point out just how Kliff Kingsbury was utilizing the no huddle. Not only is it just no huddle in the traditional sense, but he's changing personnel groupings, he's changing designs, all this other stuff. A lot of times, no huddle in the past, you see it, it's the same personnel group, it's the same formation, it's just different plays out of that same look. But Kliff Kingsbury really designed a way to get different looks while in the no huddle. And that was something that was a little bit revolutionary last year. This year now, I think a lot of it had to do with need because of the injury to John Bates. But now you're also incorporating the pistol, incorporating that eligible lineman additional piece. And I think that's been really, really great. Ryan Clark of NFL Live also added in, talking about Deebo Samuel as that chess piece and really focused on the creative play development of Deebo Samuel, who was, quote, moved around and maneuvered as a chess piece for this offense, end quote. And he talked about the various roles. And look, this part is not new. Deebo, we've always known he's going to be in the backfield. He's going to be a receiver in empty sets. He's going to be in reduced splits, playing in the slot, all that kind of stuff. Deep ball, we've talked about that. You're going to put him in motion. You're going to use him in the screen. These things are not new. But what Kliff Kingsbury is doing, especially against the Los Angeles Chargers, is designing it, dressing it up, drawing it up in a way that is still getting Deebo opportunities to make plays for this offense, even though he is clearly the most dangerous weapon on the field from a receiver standpoint, and defenses should be obviously planning for him and even contributing additional defensive resources to trying to stop him. Even with all of that, because of what Kliff Kingsbury is doing with this offense, they're still getting things rolling. And it was pointed out last week during one of my episodes as well. Some people kind of responded and said, hey, is it really that big of a team problem? Because the team still put up, nearly 30 points against the Atlanta Falcons. And I see what you're saying. But ultimately, when the team fails, everybody failed. Like, the offense isn't going to walk out patting themselves on the back saying, well, we did our job, guys. It's up to those guys. No, like, when the team fails, they fail together. Now, how the future of the offense works here is the evolution really shows multiple things. One, it does show that Kliff Kingsbury at least has the capacity to accept and embrace that his team is a run-first offense, which is promising moving forward, especially if you have Croskey-Merritt on your fantasy roster. But also that he's capable of doing it, and that he understands, and that this offense clearly demonstrates it will open up those things downfield like he wants to do as well. You don't have to force the issue. You don't have to try to just be that all the time. You can set it up the way that they did against Los Angeles. Jayden Daniels, after the game, talked about having more time to spend with the unit, more time to have with the running backs, the receivers, the tight ends, and how that's going to further unlock things. I think it's a very smart comment. And then players like Luke McCaffrey, Croskey-Merritt, who we just talked about, they're going to draw attention as well the more they perform. I mean, Luke has had touchdown catches in 2 of the last 3 games, had that big 50-yarder there near the end of the first half against the Chargers. Those things, huge. And defenses are going to start paying attention to it for sure. And that's only going to help things open up for other guys as well. The scheme is going to get harder to play defense again against. And then when Terry McLaurin comes back, it's another gear. When Noah Brown comes back, it's another gear, et cetera, et cetera. So really like what we're seeing from the offense. Wanted to start off today's episode talking about that a little bit more in depth, but we are going to get to our after action review, because that brilliant in-game pivot from the Commanders offense to execute part of our pregame game plan was done to near perfection. It led to a dominant performance in all phases after a little bit of a shaky start to start the Week 5 contest against the Los Angeles Chargers. That and more coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of a Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Commanders is brought to you by PrizePicks. Every day, you and I, we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid in the moment, in real time, right when you make that right decision. So don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is it's fun, to be quite honest with you. It's simple, and there's a simple way to add excitement to football, which is already pretty exciting, but you get even more out of it. Just pick more or less on player projections like Jayden Daniels passing yards, Deebo Samuel scoring a touchdown, and you're in the game. Just that quick. I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute if you want to, or if you're like me and you're a football nerd, you really want to get in the weeds with it, it'll take you a little bit longer, but it's fun either way. My favorite part is the new stacks feature. After watching Croskey-Merritt, Bill, break out, you can go on Prize Picks, select more on his rushing yards, more on his rushing touchdowns, and you can put it all in one lineup, whereas before, you can only do one stat projection per player. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup on Prize Picks. It's good to be right. This game, this Week 5 win for the Washington Commanders, really was a tale of two crucial turnovers, one that shifted the momentum to the Commanders and one that sealed the victory for them late in the fourth quarter. Here's our after-action review. We're going to talk about what happened, we're talking about what was supposed to happen, which means what we on this show, Locked On Commanders, our game plan for the Commanders to beat the Los Angeles Chargers. There's a comment on YouTube on that game plan episode said, I've seen a lot of these game plan episodes and the team never does what it is that is said on the game plan episode. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that everything we've said all season long that they need to try to do, that they've actually tried to do, but I think that our accuracy rate has been pretty high. And actually in this one specifically, all 6 things that we said the Washington Commanders should try to do against the Los Angeles Chargers, not only did they go out there and try to do them, but they did them pretty stinking well. So I think we're doing pretty good understanding who the Washington Commanders are and understanding a little bit of who their opponents are as well. Crossover Thursday certainly helps out with that. Lauren Cox, Locked On Bears, coming through this week for Locked On Thursday ahead of Monday Night Football. So make sure you come through for that as well, because that's how I get as smart as I do about some of these teams that the Washington Commanders are facing, guys. Trust me, I'm not a Chargers expert by any means. So anyway, our game plan, neutralize the Los Angeles Chargers pass rush. How do you do that? You get physical inside. You use that interior rush attack as best you can. Use play action against the Los Angeles Chargers. Protect Jayden Daniels. Obviously, Max Pro, quick throws, all that kind of stuff. Max Pro is max protection. Let's talk to the offensive side of things. The execution was nearly flawless. Not only did they do all 3 things that we said, but we're giving them grades A+, A, and A for all 3 things. The cornerstone of the victory was that rushing attack. And we got to admit here, and just like I said in the game plan episode, this was the one I was least certain about. I was least certain that Kliff Kingsbury was seeing it the way we saw it and said, all right, my team is a run first team. Let's go out there and get it done. And truthfully, they didn't run first, right? They passed first, but quickly enough, I would say, Kliff Kingsbury got to the point and said, okay, we got to run the ball first here, and then we'll use it to set up the pass. And certainly, I think 163 yards rushing, not 200 yards like they've done in 2 of the previous 4 games before this one, but 163 yards. You've now got 50 yards rushing or more in 3 of the 5 games of this season. 2 touchdowns. Croskey-Merritt led the way with 111 yards and 2 scoring touchdowns on just 14 carries. I know we got to vote. Not we, but I know people have to vote. But just give that man a Rookie of the Week belt already. I think it's going to be, 2 out of 5, right? 2 out of 5 going to Croskey-Merritt, 3 out of 5 going to the Washington Commanders, including Jalen Lane for his punt return touchdown. So run game, they used it. They established it early, and it worked to perfection. Play action, again, that's kind of the whole point, right? And look, I told insiders this during the game, and there was a point in the game where they were starting to use the run game, had 3 really good run plays. Now, I say really good run plays, I'm not saying successful, because one of them was actually only a 1-yard gain. Luke McCaffrey was coming through the lane to clear out to block for Croskey-Merritt. Unfortunately, he slipped on the SoFi Stadium surface and actually fell in the hole, and Croskey-Merritt got kind of bottled up and again tackled. But the design, the execution, right? Because I'm not going to sit here and say, well, Luke McCaffrey is to blame for slipping and sliding. Like several Commanders players changed their cleats to better spikes because of the surface. So that's just kind of one of those things. But anyway, 3 straight plays, really successful, really good, drawn up, executed run plays by this Washington Commanders offense. And then on the 4th play, they went empty. And I'm not saying you can't run out of an empty look, right? You can do an end around, a reverse, jet sweep, whatever you want to call them. But it's kind of, I'm just like, dude, like you have 3 really good run plays. If you want to pass, fine. But hit them with the play action, or at least have a back in position, even if it's Deebo, receiver lined up as a running back, threaten the run again on the Chargers. You're dominating them. Threaten it, right? Didn't do it. Now, fortunately, Kliff did end up eventually going to that kind of a design really got into his bag, to be quite honest with you. And it created exactly what we were talking about, right? 50-yard play action pass completion to Luke McCaffrey helped set up a field goal before the end of the first half. Ended up tying the game, and the Washington Commanders were off to the races after that. So you get an A for that as well, even though it didn't start all that great. But we've all taken tests that didn't start so great, and then we delivered at the end. And then protection. The O-line delivered its best performance of the season. Jayden Daniels only got sacked one time, was kept clean for most of the day, posted a 100 passer rating as well. So hats off to that offensive line. I mean, you got Andrew Wiley in there for Sam Cosmi. You got Chris Paul in there yet again after replacing Brandon Coleman. And it is looking like clearly it was the right decisions, which should be no surprise that these guys know what they're doing, at least a little bit. So flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, the game plan, contain Justin Herbert. We said this guy can run better than his reputation says he can. Use discipline rush lane usage, disguise coverages, force checkdowns, use a red zone blitz in key moments. And they did all of those things. However, once again, just like the entire theme for the game, a little bit of a shaky start, right? 41-yard scramble by Justin Herbert on the very first third down of the game. That was ugly. So for that one, we're giving it a B. But it's really just because of that scramble. And it wasn't the only thing Justin Herbert did with his legs either, but the unit did adjust very, very well, midway through the second quarter, I would say. Afterwards, they got to Justin Herbert 5 times as a defense. Disguising the coverage, you got to give him an A here. Highly affected. Limited the Chargers to only one big pass play and forced the game-sealing interception by Mikey Sainristil in the fourth quarter. Mikey Sainristil, look, the pass was deflected by Johnny Newton. You love that play. Absolutely need to give him credit. But if you look at the play, you look back at the tape, Mikey Sainristil is in position to make a play on that pass regardless. I think he's getting an interception regardless. So loved all the credit to Johnny Newton, but Mikey Sainristil also played that game, that play very, very well. So you get an A for their red zone scheme. Cover zero blitz wasn't needed as much because of what they were doing between the 20s, but the goal was achieved. The defense got critical stops using its base rush and coverage, including the game-sealing interception at the 1 yard line. So that's the closest one you can say that they didn't necessarily use. But again, all the pressure is cumulative. All of those things kind of combining led to all of that. So were we perfect? No, but we're never going to be, nor should we be, because honestly, if we're perfect in our weekly game plan, the other side is probably also going to be perfect in their weekly game plan. So there always needs to be a little bit of a caveat, a little bit of a but I would say that we did pretty stinking well identifying what needed to happen against the Chargers and now seeing what did happen against the Chargers. Obviously, everything kind of lined up. So from there in our AAR, we go to what 3 things we want to see move forward to next Monday night, or this coming Monday night, I should say, against the Chicago Bears, and what 3 things need to be left behind in Los Angeles forever. That coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Commanders brought to you in part by Mazda, and Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breath work, athletes sweat every single detail, and Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model of their vehicle line, just like the Commanders defense that made detailed adjustments to pitch a shutout for nearly three full quarters. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, earning more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. The offense showed its physical finesse, right, like we talked about, and you can feel that same level of detail in Mazda's Japanese craftsmanship, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. And just as the team had to adjust to win on the road, you can drive on the road with confidence through any season with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV. Like the players, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. The win, the Week 5 win for the Washington Commanders over the Los Angeles Chargers, showcased the team's clutch potential, especially that 99-yard game-sealing drive. But it also did remind us that there are still some concerns, some habits that continue to pop up for this team that need to get fixed along the way. And we talked about this in the post-game episode, right? That, it wasn't the most perfect outing and all that stuff, but it's Week 5. You're not necessarily expecting a team to be perfect in Week 5. I saw some comments that you're never going to win a Super Bowl playing the way they played against the Los Angeles Chargers. Well, I mean, 2 takeaways, honestly, in a lot of Super Bowls will actually help you get a win pretty tremendously. But the good news about any performance, September or October, good or bad, is that you don't need that performance to win you a Super Bowl, because Super Bowl's really, really far away. You have plenty of time. Anyway, 3 things we want to sustain. defensive resilience, and of course, the adjustment is made on the field by Joey Jr. and his coaches. Up in the box by Joey Jr. and his coaches, and then on the field by his other coaches and his players. After allowing 10 points in the first two drives, both in the fourth quarter, the defense made incredible adjustments. No points scored in the last three quarters of the game allowed from the Washington Commanders defense. Pitched a shutout, forced a fumble, an interception, 2 punts, and a turnover on downs, all while getting 5 sacks on Justin Herbert. You love that resilience. You love the adjustments. Definitely want to see that moving forward against Chicago Bears. Ben Johnson, offensive mastermind over there, and Caleb Williams had a fairly rough game last time they were out week 4 against the Las Vegas Raiders, but still getting better. Dominant rushing attack. Croskey-Merritt, Bill cemented his role as the team's primary back. Explosive 111-yard performance. That's just on the ground. 2 touchdowns. The offense proved it can be physical, it can dominate, and good defense against a good defensive front. Rushed for 163 yards total, 5.8 yards per carry. We've been asking for the rushing attack to transfer every single week. Needs to transfer again in week 6 against Chicago Bears. Clutch playmaking and key moments. Again, the 99-yard drive by itself, but also Quan Martin's forced fumble, that really shifted the momentum of this game. Mikey Sanderson's goal line interception preserved the lead and gave the offense the opportunity to come out there and shut the door, which they did tremendously. 13-play, 99-yard drive, sealed the victory. Touchdown pass to Deebo Samuel from Jayden Daniels. Deebo Samuel well on his way to making my prediction look good. 1,200 total offensive yards, 6 touchdowns was my prediction. Deebo well on his way to doing that. 3 things to improve. There are things to improve here. Ball security. Look, I know it's only one play, and you love the fact that you're nitpicking one play from a guy that did as well as Bill did, but that lost fumble in the fourth quarter near midfield, you can't do it, man. You got to hold on to the football. I'm confident that Bill knows that, obviously, and I'm confident that they'll get it fixed. Did give the Chargers the ball near midfield, like I said, with a chance to get back in the game. That is the drive where ultimately Mikey Sanders will end up getting the interception. So defense helping offense helping defense throughout the game. Good stuff there. But that ball security, always going to talk about it. Every single time they turn it over, we're always going to talk about it. Offensive slow starts. Again, they did great. 27 points in the game total. Imagine if they could have got off to a faster start. Even another field goal in those first 2 drives, and you're at the 30-point mark. And anytime you drop a 30-burger on a defense, you're doing pretty stinking well. Only 30 yards combined in the first 2 drives of the game. So a dangerous pattern to play with, because some of these teams, man, will get up on you quick. And if they do and you're going slow, you don't want to be in those situations. You love that the Commanders came back from it, but you don't want to be in those situations all the time. Discipline and penalties continue. Now, even though the Washington Commanders actually ended up the least penalized team, at least from a yardage standpoint in this game, you still got to get those down, man. Some costly penalties. Mikey Sanders still jumped offsides on an early 3rd down. Los Angeles Chargers were going to take a field goal. It was going to be 3-0. Gave them a new set of downs, gave them a 1st and goal. Chargers scored what ended up being their only touchdown of the game. Ladd McConkey in the middle of the end zone. But still, you don't want to give them that opportunity. That's 4 points that the defense essentially gifted to the Los Angeles Chargers. Multiple offensive line penalties, stalled drives, created long yardage situations. Again, like, you love the fact that this Washington Commanders team on 3rd and 15, you're not sitting here saying, okay, punt's coming. Like, you know that they can actually convert that, but you don't have to prove it so much, right? So those are 3 things we want to see improved moving into week 6. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Commanders. Next time, it's mailbag time. We got some doozies, so we're going to get as many as we can in. I can tell you already right now, we're not going to get them all done. Might have to do a bonus mailbag episode. We'll see if we have time this week. But next time, we will do a mailbag episode. In the meantime, if you've got questions that you want to put in for future mailbag episodes, and if you want to get all the inside information, get all the conversation that goes beyond the episodes, all you got to do is text me. And to do that, go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. Become an insider today. For your second listen, get a double dose of NFL national attention. Locked On NFL is twice per day. Tyler Rowland in the morning, Tony Wiggins in the afternoon. Wednesday afternoon is my time with Tony. So make sure, especially you're going through Wednesday afternoons, Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast. To the everydayers, I see you. I appreciate you every single day. And I thank you again for coming through today. Everybody out there, until next time, stay safe, be kind to one another. We'll talk again real soon right here on Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.